Once again, I'm back for the final part of our presentation. So where we left it off, we've got those 4 pillars of conservation, split into those short-term and long-term goals. And this basically, so our short-term is the management of wild populations, as well as the capture, breeding and reintroduction, which is what we're primarily doing here as a site. Then in the long run, it's about inspiring communities and the protection of habitat, because you can understand, once we do those short-term goals properly, those long-term goals are going to do our job for us. But what do we do to do all of these? So I'm going to go into a bit more detail. In regards to management of wild populations, we have field teams out there monitoring the wild populations, monitoring the habitats, finding suitable locations for release, targeting those problems out there, as well as just monitoring the existence of those populations. So we have 2 teams, one here in Isleta, monitoring the scarlet macaws, and we have one team up in that northeast area of Costa Rica, monitoring the great green macaws near Serifaki. Every single great green nesting site known to Costa Rica, our field team are monitoring. So this gives us a massive ability to monitor them and ensure the increased chance of survival of those chicks. We're monitoring what they're eating and where are they nesting. So again, if they need assistance, we can assist them out there and increase chance of survival. But this whole time we're building a database of information and we're creating the best experts out there on these topics. And this means that we can implement all of this information into our aviaries with those captive, unreleasable birds and provide them with the most wildlife possible, but in the safety of their aviaries. But how does that work? So I'm going to explain that through the story of Phil and Rosie. So this is Phil and Rosie here, 2 great green macaws, and they came from very similar situations to Pepper. So they can't fly, they've never seen another macaw in their life, and they wouldn't survive in the wild. So the initial process is socialisation, so that they can learn that they're a macaw. This could be very scary though. Can you imagine being away from humans for 15 years and being thrown into the middle of somebody's birthday party where you know nobody? It's going to be very daunting. Some people may lash out, acting aggressively, and some people may withdraw from that situation. But over time, you may catch the eye contact of the right person, feel comfortable in each other's company, and together you build the confidence to intermingle into that social group. And that's exactly what happened here with Phil and Rosie. They found each other's company ever so delightful, together they socialised, but then we recognised that Phil and Rosie were taking each other away to have a kiss and a cuddle in the back of the aviary. This is a really exciting sign because it is proven that this is evidence of breeding behaviour. These macaws are monogamous, they mate for life. So when Phil and Rosie fell in love, we were over the moon with excitement. We moved them into their own private aviary, they get their own nest box and privacy from the rest of the birds. And 2 breeding seasons later, baby Hermione hatched. So here's baby Hermione, she's about 2 days old in this image and she's pretty useless. She's as small as the palm of your hand here. She can't sit up by herself just yet, her eyes are closed over her ears and her nostrils. But this is her most vital stage of life, and in just 10 days she's going to be 10 times her size. So a couple of days after Hermione hatched, her brother Harry hatched, and here's Harry at about 2 weeks old. So you can see now that his eyes are opening, he's smiling for the photograph, his nostrils are open and so are his ears. But why is he in somebody's hands? We handle these macaws as minimally as possible. It's very important that they're raised by their parents and that they fear humans. But because every single one of these chicks is going to contribute to the wild populations, it's very important that we're raising healthy chicks. So this is why he's in somebody's hands. He's going to go through a health check to ensure that he's hitting his milestones as he should. And then he goes straight back into the nest box. But soon enough he's going to be blossoming and blooming like the rest of us, and we see this at 2 months old. Here in the nesting box we can see Mom Rosie and Harry and Hermione inside of that nesting box. They have all of their feathers through now and they're practically the same size as their parents. Mom's still feeding them and preening them and practically providing 24-hour day care. She's not a wild bird, but she does have the natural instinct to protect these chicks, because in the wild they would be at massive risk of predation. So that's why she's going to spend nearly all day every day inside of here until they get ready to explore the wider world. And we see that happen at around 3 months old. These chicks pick up the courage and they step outside. So here's Mom Rosie and Harry and Hermione goofing off and being siblings. Together they're going to build the confidence, stretch those wing muscles and learn to fly. But for another 9 months, so up to about a year old, they do still rely on their parents for feeding. So when we recognise that they no longer need parental guidance, what we do is move them into their own private aviary. Here they no, not private aviary, sorry, social aviary, pre-release aviary, and this is where they meet the rest of the chicks from that season and start forming a social group for release. So what we see here is Harry and Hermione and some of our other pre-release macaws going through that training. They have that mountain almond nut, that most vital food source, and they have to learn to get into these. They're going to learn to drive that lower mandible into the creases of the nut and crack it open, and it immediately comes a lot harder when your siblings are trying to steal them from you. But we don't just provide them with the fruits, we provide them with the branches and the leaves and everything that goes with that so that they can truly recognise where these foods come from in the wild. But feeding yourself is one thing, it's also important to be afraid of the necessary things. So we go through human and predator aversion training as well to ensure that every single one of these macaws is ready to be wild, because that's where they belong, that's where they show their true colours, and this is what we want to see, where we want to see them. What we see here is our scarlet macaw population, wild and free today in the Isleta area. This is what you guys have been seeing while they eat their breakfast, and also what we're going to see very shortly. We have now successfully released over 200 macaws back into the wild, and this is so exciting. But it's not just considered success by doing that. Success is marked when they sustain their own populations and they no longer need our support. So when Scarface and Alvira had 2 chicks in the wild here in the Isleta area, we were super excited about this. So what we see here is Scarface and Alvira, and they've chosen this dead palm tree as their nesting cavity. Unfortunately, because it's secondary growth forest here in Isleta, we don't have as many large substantial trees with nesting cavities as we'd like. So Scarface and Alvira found a dead palm tree and they thought that cavity was great until it rained and it turned to a wet cardboard-like substance and eventually it hit the ground. But because we're aware of every single nesting site, we're able to monitor the safety, especially those vulnerable ones. So we were immediately out there on the field in time to rescue those chicks, bring them back to our clinic, health check them, and in the meantime what we do is build a fake palm tree. This is basically a nest box on stilts, and we put that up exactly where this palm tree stood, and we put those chicks back inside, and the parents have no problem relocating them. So these wild birds are, well, these 4, are wild and free, surviving in the Isleta area. But to prevent this, we have a nesting box program. So every non-breeding season, we're getting ready for the next breeding season by putting up new and different sizes and materials of nesting boxes, so that our wild population here has ample opportunity to find their perfect home. But this specific nest box, we're going to see very soon, I promise, but it actually connects us to our community engagement program, and you can find it right down in the centre of Isleta. You found the football field, the school and the church, and everything that is the heart of our community. And right there on the edge of the football field, we have a large Guanacaste tree, and in the top of that is this nesting box. And these 2 macaws in this image were the first 2 scarlet macaws to breed in the Guanacaste area in over 70 years. So when they chose our community nesting box, we couldn't have wrote a better story. We got all of the school children out. They had toilet paper binoculars and they were given the opportunity to be biologists. They monitored the birds, and then when the chick fledged the nest, we gave them the opportunity to name that baby. We're expecting a really exotic name. Maybe you can throw some examples of what you would have called the bird into the comments below. But what they actually called him was Patrick. Not as exotic as we expected, but it doesn't really matter because the children are in love with him. What we also do is bring the communities here on site so that they can truly understand that as a project we're here to support them in the long run and not ourselves. But also on top of that, we have a few financial incentives. We work with the adults and they either work with us on site on one of our 3 sites across Costa Rica, or we do that through the likes of our art program, working with artists from across Costa Rica, providing us with beautiful bespoke macaw-related artwork. This financially supports the conservation of the macaws, but it also financially supports those communities, and they, the artists, know that they're personally contributing to the conservation of the macaws through the sales of their artwork. So now I'm done talking, and if we're ready, you can check in on our next video to see our wild bird feeding. So please keep your eyes peeled and get ready to see what happens next. Thank you very, very much. Please again comment with any questions, and we'll see you very soon. Thank you.